David and I are currently on a 26-day cruise, and we just went to 2 different ports of call in the Seychelles. Now, this is a bucket list destination for many people due to its remoteness and just general levels of awesomeness. We had a really terrific time there, and we're going to tell you what it was like and what our experience was getting off on these 2 different ports.
Our first port was Digue. This is a small community on a gorgeous little island. This is the kind of place that if you see pictures of the Seychelles, you're going to see these beautiful big round rock formations along the coast. This is where you will definitely see them.
Digue is a tender port, which means this is a small enough community. They don't have a massive big port to support a cruise ship pulling in. The water's just not deep enough. So you have to anchor out to sea and then take smaller tender boats over onto the island, which isn't a problem, but just know it is going to take some time. Now, because it is a tender port, a couple of other things to let you know about is, one, the waters here can be very rough. And so getting in that tender boat was a bit of an adventure. The waves were very high, and in fact, the crews before us had to cancel the port altogether because the water was just too rough to safely get people in and out of the tenders. So just know that that could be a problem. People get very upset when ports get canceled, but in this case, it is a safety issue. There are very big waves here. Just keep that in mind. Another thing is that this is a busy port. Because it is so small, there's a lot of traffic that is coming in and out, personal boats, fishing boats, there's ferries from other islands. And so while we were coming across, there were some delays just waiting for bigger boats to get in and out. You know, we had one dock, I think we had like 6 tenders going, but there was only space for 1 at a time. So they would load people up and then everybody had to kind of wait our turn. So even though it wasn't a very long tender, it took a little while to get over. I know there were some people that were getting sick, but we were just happy that we were able to tender and get over to the island because we had a really nice day here.
When you get over to the dock, it is very simple. It is very small, so you don't have to take a bus or a taxi into town at all. You are right there. The roads are pretty easy. There are a lot of bicycles, though. That seems to be the main way people get around town. In fact, quite a few people, as soon as we walked off, were saying, bicycles, bicycles, do you want to rent? And we wanted to walk that day, so we didn't, but you will see people everywhere on bicycles up and down the roads. Now, what we did was simply take a walk, and it's really easy. Once you get out of the dock, turn left or right. You could turn right and go somewhere. We don't know where that goes, deeper into town, but if you turn left, you'll follow the main road and it'll go along a bunch of beaches around the outside of the island. This road will eventually take you to the far side of the island where it dead ends. The whole walk is beautiful. When you're in town, there's lots of little restaurants and bars. There's some beaches there too. They're a bit more crowded when you get started, but the further you get along the road, the more secluded they get because less people are walking that far.
Although I will say, even those first beaches are beautiful.
They're still gorgeous.
Like, yeah. If you didn't...
the sand is amazing. Some of the silkiest sand I've ever put my toes in, and I was happy to do it. We walked along the beach. We walked in the water. It's bathtub warm. Yes. It is just lovely.
It's not very refreshing, at least close to the shore. Maybe if you get farther out.
If you get a little further out.
It's pretty warm, but I like that, so it was nice.
It was nice. But as you keep walking, you'll keep discovering new things along the way. More beaches, beautiful little forested areas. It gets very lush as you get over to the other side of the island too. There are a few hills up and down. If you're not much of a walker, you might not want to go all the way, but if you're really a walker, these high hills aren't a big problem. What else did we see? We saw giant tortoises. There were giant tortoises along the road. Be respectful of the tortoises. They are right there. We saw a lot of tourists not being very respectful, putting hats on them and stuff. These are living creatures that are trying to live their lives. So I say take as many pictures as you want. Just try not to touch them.
Now, as we often do, we just walked around. This is what we wanted to do that day. excursions you can take to go out to some of the more outlying beaches. If you want to go snorkeling, I mean, the ship offered tours. There were tour guides right there off the ship trying to sell different tours to different places. So if you wanted to do something a little bit more adventurous, that is going to be an option for you as well. But for us, we really just enjoyed walking around, seeing some of those iconic sights from the beaches with the big boulders, taking some pictures, and having a really lovely afternoon. This was very different from our experience the next day in Port Victoria. This is a big city on a much bigger island with a lot more infrastructure, and the ship was actually able to dock there, which just makes everything a lot easier because you're able to walk right off the ship. Now here, this is still a relatively small port though, so we were able to just walk right out of the dock and get into town. We didn't have to take a taxi or anything like that. And we basically planned to do the same thing. We were just going to go walk around and see what we could see. So since we were in the town, and the town is much bigger, we didn't really get to any beaches.
No.
Again, there are tours you can take that will take you out to some of those places if that's what you want to do, but we just wanted to walk around. So what we did is we got out our trusty Google Maps, and it directed us to the local botanical gardens. Now once we got there, there were a lot of tours that went there also. And if you want to take a tour and get driven there, that's going to be easier. It was pretty hot. However, we just walked there. It took us about 15 minutes. It wasn't that difficult following the directions to get there. And that way we're able to do it on our own. This was also nice because we were the first people there. We walked off the ship right when they announced that we could get off. And so we beat all those tour groups, and they didn't start arriving until we were leaving. So that gave us, I think, a much nicer experience because it was a lot of tour groups that went there. So it was a lot of people. What did you think about the Botanic Gardens? It was really nice.
It was really beautiful. You really get to see what the forest there looks like, and it is thick and lush and tall trees. Really quite impressive. There's a few features that are really interesting. They have a tortoise exhibit.
And there was a lot of them.
A lot.
Yeah.
There were people taking care of those animals. Lots of birds flying around. There's a Chinese garden and a few other specialty gardens. There's a lily pond. It's a really pretty park. It was a little more expensive than we expected.
Yes, so oftentimes we will, look ahead of time to see what entrance fees are. And we were expecting it to be about $10 US. And then when we got there, it was in, is it rupiah that they had?
The local
currency. And we didn't do the conversion. I just trusted what I remembered, and it turned out to be a bit more expensive than that. I'll put it on the screen, but I think it was about $17 US each to get in. So it was a little bit expensive, I think, for what it was, but we still had a nice time, and I'm not sad that we went.
And then after that, we walked into town. And that's another 20 minutes to walk into town. Not a big walk, pretty flat.
We were kind of wandering around, just enjoying it.
It is a very interesting town because the Seychelles doesn't get tons of visitors and tons of cruise ships. The town is not built around the cruise industry like a lot of maybe the Caribbean towns that you've been to. So it feels like people live there.
Yeah.
It really feels like the people there are living their day-to-day life, and they really are. And it is very interesting to see the local markets and how people are living and passing their time.
We walked past some temples. There's a Hindu temple that we saw, and I think there was a mosque we walked by. So there are some different things like that. There was the sign that says, "I love the Seychelles." And so if you want to get that picture in front of the sign, you can do that. There was a big statue of Big Ben.
Because Big Ben, why not? And that is on the corner where you will find the National Museum. We didn't go into the National Museum, but it's right there. And that's pretty much our day. We just walked around and observed the town, and it was really pretty cool.
So Digue, even though it was a lot more complicated to get to because of the tendering process, if you're looking for natural beauty, that's where you're going to find that. And if you go to Port Victoria, you're going to have to take a tour and get out of town to find those areas. But if you're comfortable just walking around and seeing how the locals live and what that city looks like, we had a really good day. We were glad we got to do both and have both experiences while we were in the Seychelles.
It's pretty easy to get around on the island and get by. English is widely spoken, especially in the tourist areas. We didn't have any problem, although I do think the most people are speaking French there or Creole. The money, they do have rupiah, and you may not want to run to an ATM, but also in the tourist areas, a lot of people are accepting euros and American dollars.
As you can tell, we really enjoyed our visit to the Seychelles. I mean, this was a big reason we chose this itinerary in the first place. We have always wanted to come, and I am super glad that we were able to make that happen on this cruise. It is a beautiful place, an easy place, a safe place, and we had a really terrific time. Now, we are shooting a cruising video every day of this 26-day cruise. If you are interested in seeing more of our content, I will leave a link to that playlist right over here.
Today